Today, we are talking all about how ADHD can show up in your step family. Welcome, welcome. I am so excited about today's guest. Jennie Anderson is someone that I met through a business mastermind that we were both in, and we hit it off pretty immediately when we realized that we were both stepmoms and had all kinds of shared experiences. And it turns out she's also kind of a big expert in ADHD stuff. And we've had some really fascinating conversations about it. So I had to bring her on and talk to her about it so that you could benefit from the wealth of knowledge that she brings into this space. So, let me tell you a little bit about her. Jennie is a registered nurse. She's a certified health and life coach and a psychiatric mental health nurse practitioner candidate with a master's degree in education. She blends neuroscience, identity shifts, nervous system work, and lived experience to support women with ADHD. She's the founder of the House of Her, which is where women learn to stop white knuckling their goals and start building lives that feel calm and capable and fully theirs. And she's doing some amazing work. We have an absolutely fabulous discussion. I can't wait for you to hear it. So let's dive right in. Jennie, I'm so excited to have you here.
I'm so excited to be here with you, and it's so great to see your face.
Yes, I know. So, Jennie, and I said this in the introduction, I just love catching up with Jennie all the time, but I am so excited to bring her here to talk about something that I hear a lot about from my stepmoms and I don't actually know that much about. So I'm really excited to just ask you all the things about ADHD. But before we get started, I always ask my guests what their stepmom origin story is. And you are a stepmom. So give me all the things. What is your stepmom origin story?
I love that so much. So I am on both sides, so which is great because I have children who they have a stepmom, so I'm the bio mom, but then I also have stepkids. And it's been quite an interesting dynamic and a really beautiful learning experience just from so many different angles of navigating the relationships on both sides.
Totally. And that one of the first things we bonded on when we met was that you had this experience. And it's funny. I mean, I've had people say to me in the past, well, I mean, gosh, it's not like stepmoms have a secret handshake. And I'm like, actually, we do kind of, anytime you meet another stepmom, you kind of are like, oh, I get you. I see you, you
Yeah,
know?
absolutely.
So I have worked with a ton of stepmoms who have got stepkids that have ADHD.
Yeah.
I want to really dig into that. You run a program for women with ADHD, so I want to dig into that too. But let's talk first about the kids. How does that show up in a step family when a kid comes in and the step family's forming and the kid has ADHD? Like, how does that show up?
Yeah. Oh my goodness. I love this topic so much because there's so many layers. And it also depends on the family dynamic. And there's just so many different attributes that go into navigating that situation when a kiddo has ADHD. Because oftentimes people may or may not realize anyone with ADHD, but especially kids, emotional dysregulation is a big thing. And it's
Mhm.
something that's often really difficult to navigate when you don't understand the background of what's going on. And then I found with not all kids, but some kids, there's this little bit of guilt of if they have a bond with their stepmom, they're like quote unquote cheating on their bio mom. And
Totally.
it's a whole other dynamic to manage when you're trying to look at all facets. And then oftentimes because they don't know how to regulate their emotions or they have so many emotions, it comes through they're either acting out or they get really cold and standoffish, or they go through this cycle of just trying to be overly pleasing to be accepted.
Yeah, it's so hard for a kiddo. I just, it's hard enough when you don't have that kind of dysregulation, but then when you come into it, you do. And I think, you see a lot with kids that have ADHD where like it doesn't get diagnosed for a while. And I think it's got back, I think that part of it has gotten better. Like I actually have a number of friends who've gotten diagnosed as adults who probably should have been diagnosed years ago, but that wasn't, I mean, at least when we were growing up, it wasn't really a thing, I mean, you were labeled something different. Because they
Yeah.
didn't know about it necessarily. How does it have you seen it play out, or I guess tell me how it would play out. So you've got a kid with ADHD. Maybe the two households have really different views about how to deal with that and how to help this kid. One of them maybe is pro medication and one of them isn't. And, how does that kind of stuff play out? Because I think that some of those things can just get really complicated.
It can get so complicated and it can get so just like hairy. Just because especially with ADHD, there's literature that supports medication and then literature that supports more of a natural diet and things like that. And for a kid who has a whole lot of trouble with moving between routine and through different types of routines, whenever they move very frequently. So let's say they switch houses twice a week versus once a week.
Uh-huh.
Switching houses a ton, they don't have time to come back to the new house. And anybody, especially I work with a lot of adults who were late diagnosed ADHD. And is what I've seen by talking to them, it's like they have different identities, that they are one version of themselves in different settings. And then that starts in childhood, especially
Yeah.
kiddos that have had to go from different houses. So there's different expectations at different households. So let's say at mom's house, it looks one way where I don't want to like call out any particular person, but let's say like for conversation purposes, there's more junk food or there's not as much activity. And then maybe at dad's house, there is really healthy eating and a lot of family activity and dynamics and things like that. And switching between the two is very difficult. And transitions for anyone with ADHD, transitions are hard in itself. So transitioning between household to household, there's an added layer of difficulty. And one thing to remember when you have a kiddo with ADHD is they need time and space to transition. And they're not wrong for that.
Mhm. 'Cause that can be frustrating for an adult that doesn't necessarily know how to provide that. So what can step parents do when they have a kiddo that has got ADHD? They know that these transitions are hard for all kids. I mean, you see kind of behavioral stuff
Mhm.
come up around them all the time on transition day, but it is particularly acute, I think, with the ADHD kiddos. How can step parents support them and support their partner as they're kind of dealing with all that?
Yeah. So that is so difficult because relationships are hard. Relationships are hard for
Mhm.
anyone. So, the first thing would be my biggest suggestion is starting with the co-parenting unit if possible. Trying to have open communication with co-parenting and coming together as a whole. And it's hard being the stepmom, especially when they have another mom and it's bio mom. So it's like
Yeah.
as a stepmom, you don't want to step on their toes, but then
Mhm.
also you may be very well versed in certain areas and you have something to add and contribute. So, maneuvering that dynamic is the first step, just so everybody can be a little bit on the same page.
Yeah, and it's hard too because those behaviors that come out with transition, like that does affect your household, So it is hard as a stepmom to sort of walk that line, right? With your co-parenting with your partner and supporting them and kind of keeping your house running smooth, but then also dealing with mom and on the other
Yeah.
side, it can be really challenging.
Yeah. And then that's where the next step comes in, where it's talking to your partner and saying, hey, this is what's happening. First and foremost, what we don't want to do is make little Johnny or little Susie feel any type of way.
Right.
Transitions are hard. It's a really big thing for them. They need time and space to be able to transition. Holding that there and maybe having a go-to routine on transition day where every single day on transition day you go to the same restaurant for dinner or you make the same thing for dinner where everything else about that day is extremely predictable. That
Yeah.
way they can feel it's safe for them to feel the emotions.
I love that you just mentioned that because that's actually something that I recommend to stepmoms for all kids. And I think I'm so glad to hear that that is something that's really helpful for the ADHD kiddos because I think it does provide like almost a sense of having a soft landing when like they know that they show up and they're going to go to the same restaurant or they show up and they're going to go get a scoop of ice cream or like whatever that little thing is that happens every time they come over. I think that
Yeah.
is really important. I love that.
Yeah. And then the last thing that is really helpful for kiddos specifically is helping them name their big emotions with no shame and no judgment
Oh,
because emotional regulation is not taught. It seems like the world just thinks we innately know how to manage our emotions, and no one does. It's a
uh-huh.
skill set. So, by if they start acting out, teaching them the words to put with that and letting it be okay.
Yes, I love that. We have had to do some of that with one of my stepsons, and that it helps so much. Yes, I love that. And especially being able to name it, I think the key part is with no fear, with no shame, because that
Yeah.
is such an important part. And for step parents, that is that really is a safe place that they can provide for Johnny or Susie. Like, hey,
Yeah.
how are you feeling? I mean, you're not coming in as the parent with any kind of agenda or discipline or any of that. You're just kind of a safe spot for them.
Yeah, being that safe spot. And then also, one thing that's really specific to the ADHD experience is something called rejection sensitivity dysphoria, where it's people with ADHD, they feel rejection and perceived rejection on such a deep soul level. So, being aware of that and helping mitigate some of that in childhood is going to help set the adult them up for so much easier success and letting them know it's okay to be angry. It's okay to be so mad that your parents got divorced. It's okay to be mad that your parents got remarried. That's not a
Right.
wrong thing, and it's normal.
Yep.
And then being that space while also saying, "You also can't punch me in the face," kind of
Right.
thing.
Yeah. Yeah. The emotions are not bad. It's
Yes.
kind of managing what we do with those emotions. Yeah.
Yes.
I love all of that. I did not know that the rejection was a big part of ADHD with kiddos.
Oh, it's such a big part, and kiddos of divorced households I haven't really dove in overly deep into the literature of this, but just talking with my own clients and my own experiences from my kids, being a stepmom, having been in a household where I went back and forth between different houses, it's something that it starts very young.
Mhm.
And a divorce, it's never the kiddo's fault. But as a child experiencing that, they feel like they're being rejected.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that just starts to set in that especially when rejection for someone with ADHD, it's like a physical pain. It's like literally
Mhm.
their soul is getting ripped apart. And it's not that they're being rejected, it's like perceived rejection.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
then that's when they start not vocalizing things that they feel because in their mind, this is not true, but in their mind, their mom or dad rejected the marriage. They rejected their family, which means they also rejected them. If
right.
they open up and build a bond with another person, like the stepmom, they
Yeah.
build a bond with them. They're going against their other mom, like their bio mom, but then they're also opening themselves up to be rejected again.
Well, that tension between stepmom and biomom is absolutely backed up by the literature.
Yes.
Research talks a lot about the loyalty bind that kids feel even when mom and stepmom get along. They
Mhm.
still feel like they're betraying mom, and so whatever stepmom and mom can do to alleviate that is huge for kids.
Mhm.
Yeah. So, okay, let's talk about adults because you are doing some really great work helping women who have come to ADHD as adults, not come to it, but have kind of
Realize
gotten
that
the
they have
diagnosis.
it.
Yeah, I realize they have it. Yeah,
Yeah.
that came out wrong, but, tell me about the work you do and tell me about how the women you work with who have realized as adults that they've got this or get diagnosed as adults, how is it that they figure it out?
I love that question. They usually figure it out because their kids get diagnosed. So that opens the door because ADHD is hereditary, not always. You can develop ADHD through early childhood trauma and a lot of other things, but it's often very hereditary. So if you have a child with ADHD, chances are one of the parents have ADHD. And
Interesting.
oh, it's so interesting. And because ADHD back from our generation, it was thought of as a thing that little boys have
Yeah.
when they can't sit still and they act out and they're loud and they're rambunctious and they can't hold attention and, oh, they have ADHD, it's a little boy thing. And girls, they're often the good girl. They're
Mhm.
often the people pleaser. They often get high grades. They often like go above and beyond, which is fueled by that rejection sensitivity. because it's a way to not get rejected by doing all of the right things. And then what happens is they notice that their child is struggling. So they go and see, ask for help, do all the things, child gets diagnosed. And then also, mom may or may not be near perimenopause, which is a time in a woman's life or if they do have ADHD, suddenly the coping skills don't work anymore because estrogen and dopamine have a relationship. Whenever your estrogen goes down, your dopamine goes down, and then it's really hard to function and navigate life the way that you used to. So then
Mhm.
they seek, okay, something's wrong with me. I'm pretty sure I have ADHD because everything that my kiddo does, that's what I did.
So I love learning about this because it is not talked about enough. Now, put aside the fact that menopause isn't talked about enough. And I was talking about this last week with someone. If men got breast cancer and went through menopause, we would have fixed that stuff so long ago.
Yes.
And it's just so infuriating that there's still so much unknown about all of it?
Yep.
But yeah, so that is something that I didn't realize that perimenopause is sort of when a lot of people sort of realize this.
Yeah, it's a big time whenever so many things, whenever you start to go through perimenopause, start to change and start to shift. And then oftentimes, because they do have kiddos that are experiencing ADHD symptoms, they're able to start linking, oh, these are things that I'm struggling with.
Yeah.
So that is a really big time when that diagnosis will come out.
So for any stepmoms listening that maybe don't have kids of their own, what are some things, because I do think that a lot of people, now that more is getting out there about ADHD, I think people are getting diagnosed more as an adults. Like, what are some things to look for if you're kind of resonating with some of the stuff that you're saying and wonder if that could be me? What are some things to look for and to do if you suspect that you might have it?
Yeah. So it's more than just an inability to concentrate or an inability to focus. That's what a lot of people think. They're
Yeah.
like, oh, well, I can focus on these things. I must not have it. But it's like, well, how interested in that are you? If you're extremely interested in it, then you have a ton of dopamine that floods your brain. So, of course, you can focus on it. A lot of red flags that I've seen where somebody might have an ADHD diagnosis, it's almost like they live in this really interesting duality of life where there's two separate versions of them that are so different. Where it's like version A, they are on, they are here for it, they can do all the things, they can dream up and conquer the entire world. And they feel amazing and they're go, 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 go. And then something happens, whether it's they've lost interest or they come up against a wall or something happens where the dopamine gets depleted and then they burn out. So it's really extreme cycles of being on and burning out where so many people are like, oh, well, everyone burns out. They do. The difference when it's an ADHD situation is when that burnout becomes absolutely detrimental to their life or being extremely forgetful, which that's something where people are like, oh, yeah, we forget things all the time. But the person with ADHD, they will go into a room 27 times every single day and be late to everything because they've forgotten it. And that's not everyone with ADHD because there's different types of ADHD where you can be more hyperactive. With that doesn't mean you're physically hyperactive. It can be hyperactive inside your mind, where that can look like racing thoughts or anxiety. And then there's ADHD inattentive, where you are a little bit more like maybe have been described as really daydreamy, or you don't really have the hyperactive component, or you can be ADHD combined, where you have elements of both. So, leaning into where you fit on that is a really interesting research point to say, well, I maybe sound like this or I maybe sound like that. And then the question is, does it really impact your life? But then
Mhm.
asking that in such a real way, because oftentimes someone with ADHD, it doesn't feel like it's impacting our life because we've been like this our whole life.
Right, yeah. And so what does that impact look like if we've been that way our whole life? Like, what does that look like?
Yeah. So oftentimes it looks like, are you able to maintain relationships? Are you able to not just maintain a job, or how often are you switching jobs due to getting bored or feeling like you just don't belong there anymore? If you see someone with ADHD, oftentimes they've not been in a same position or a same job for a long period of time. Not always, but that's something that I've seen a lot with a lot of the women that I work with is we have a lot of different careers and lives that we've lived. And that's one of the beautiful things about ADHD is that we do shift what we do so often because we lose interest and things other things get exciting. And for some people, that's really amazing and beautiful. For other people, it's really hard to navigate and work through. And it turns into income does not increase with the jobs, and they start to lose that income.
Yeah, yeah. And so if someone is listening to this and saying, "Well, gosh, I think that might sound like me." What is their next step and what usually is the kind of treatment or way you suggest tackling some of this as an adult? I mean, is it do you call your doctor and say, "I want to get checked out for this," or your therapist? What's the next right step for somebody?
Yeah. So it's really so if that feels like it's you and you're like, I think maybe this is me, there's several things. First, and different people, there's a couple different avenues. Primary care providers are amazing. We love primary care providers, but they are not well versed in ADHD. Oftentimes, they will diagnose someone with depression or anxiety, then give medications to treat depression or anxiety when that's not the root cause of the symptoms. It's
Mhm.
untreated ADHD. And that happened to me in my own like personal journey. I was misdiagnosed and was on the wrong medications for a long time. But talking with a primary care provider, you can get thyroid levels checked out, hormone levels checked out, making sure that there's not a other health concerns that are causing some of the
Really balance.
symptoms. But for an ADHD diagnosis, I would suggest either a psychiatrist or a psych mental health nurse practitioner who specializes in adult ADHD. That way they know the language, they know what to
Yeah.
look for, they've extensively studied this, and they can either say, "Yes, this is it," or "No, this is not it." Some people, when they get in their adult life, they're like, "Oh, I feel like this is me, but I don't need a diagnosis." You
Yeah.
don't need one, but oftentimes is what I found with talking with women, especially once they get that diagnosis, there's a lot of relief.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely, because, you've probably been going through thinking there's something wrong with you,
Yes.
and to be able to put a name to it and realize that there's not something wrong with you at all, it's just something you have to work
Yeah.
through and deal with and address. That's
Yeah.
got to be such a relief.
Oh, it is, and you don't need and oftentimes people will be like, "Well, I don't wanna take medication, so I don't need a diagnosis." And you don't have to take medication, not everybody
Right.
has to take medication. Medication can be life-changing for some people, but for some people, that's not the right answer, and that's okay. You can go the form of your nutrition and moving your body and supplementation and that kind of thing, and
Yeah.
that's the realm that I've went in 'cause I've taken medication and I've not taken medication. And now I'm on the path of more supplementation, diet, exercise, and having a lifestyle that supports my brain instead of trying to manhandle my brain into a neurotypical lifestyle.
I love that. I love that approach. This is so fascinating, and I feel like I could talk about this forever, but I am going to ask you to I want to hear where everyone can find you, but before we get to that, I want to hear you tell me all the stuff that you're doing for women and how people can work with you and then how they can find you. And then after that, we're going to go over YouTube. If you are subscribed to the YouTube channel, you can go over there and check out our additional little bonus conversation, especially if you are a step family coach or coach curious. So, Jenny, yeah, tell me what you're doing for women with ADHD and how they can work with you.
Yes, I love that. So I have created a um sort of like sanctuary type situation where basically it's called House of Her, and women can come in and there are a few different pathways depending on what talks to her in that moment. That is very ADHD friendly, meaning that it is short to the point. It's what you need to know without a whole lot of fluff, but it also holds space for whoever is coming into it to be able to create the life that feels amazing for them. So inside, we have foundations where we get like really deep into the neuroscience of what it means to have ADHD. We get into the different neurotransmitters, the brain chemistry, different ways to manage that ADHD when it comes to, do I want to use medication? Do I want to go more of a natural pathway? What are some of those options and what that looks like? And then we have different pathways where you can dive really deep into relationships and rejection sensitivity dysphoria and how to work through that, how to work through money hangups, how to work through exercise and just your overall health to feel amazing and keep your energy steady.
Oh,
A lot of times, people with ADHD, you have really energetic, like really high highs and really low lows. So it's
yeah.
how can we have more highs and fewer lows and just feel a lot more balanced in what we do? And then there's an additional pathway for the person who has done all the work. You feel, okay, I've done all the things. Why am I still not seeing changes? So it's a lot more of the embodiment piece. How do we truly become that version of us who has the life that we absolutely love? I hate to say like true ADHDer, but ADHD in tow. I have gone full in, like whole body on researching, on learning as much as I can on this. And that's what led me to pursue getting my psych mental health nurse practitioner, just so I can know more about the science and medical side of it, not just the lived experience side of it.
I love it. You are such a valuable resource for women that are struggling with ADHD. And I'm so glad that you're out there. And I love talking to you. So, we're going to link to your program in the show notes, but tell everyone where they can find you on Instagram and all the other stuff. And we'll put those links in the show notes as well.
Absolutely. So the best place to find me is going to be on Instagram, and it is at ADHD Redefined.
Love it. Well, go follow Jenny and stay in touch with her. She's a huge resource if you or your kiddos have ADHD. And I definitely hope that you will reach out to her. Jenny, thank you so much. This is always such a pleasure. I'm so glad to have you on.
Thanks so much, Cameron. I'm so excited to chat with you and just to share this message with as many people as possible.